If an entire town vanished from the face of the earth, leaving behind only a single word carved into a tree, what would you think happened to them? This isn't a legend. It's the first great mystery of America, a story written in whispers, waves, and the silence of an empty island. The year was 1587. Before there was a United States, before Jamestown or Plymouth Rock, there was Roanoke. A small group of English settlers set sail across the Atlantic Ocean, chasing a dream called the New World. Among them were families, craftsmen, soldiers, and a man named John White, who would become the governor of a brand new English colony on the coast of what is now North Carolina. They arrived on a humid August morning. The land was wild, the air thick with salt and pine. They built their wooden houses, planted crops, and carved out a fragile life on the edge of a vast, untamed continent. They believed they were building the first English home in America. Instead, they were writing the first unsolved mystery in its history. From the start, Roanoke struggled. The settlers ran short on food, and relations with nearby native tribes were tense. Some tribes traded and helped them. Others saw the strangers as invaders. As weeks turned into months, desperation grew. Governor John White made a fateful decision. He would sail back to England to bring more provisions and reinforcements. Before he left, he promised his daughter and granddaughter that he would return as soon as possible. That granddaughter, Virginia Dare, would become the first English child born in the Americas. Her birth symbolized hope, a new beginning in a new world. But fate had other plans. As John White crossed the Atlantic back to England, the winds of war changed everything. England was thrown into crisis. The Spanish Armada, the mightiest fleet in Europe, was preparing to invade. Every ship in England was seized for defense. John White begged for permission to return to his colony, but no one could spare a vessel for a distant outpost across the ocean. His heart ached as months turned into years. It would be 3 long years before he could return to Roanoke. When he finally did, in 1590, White's ship anchored near the familiar shores of the Outer Banks. His heart pounded as he looked toward the island. He expected to see smoke from chimneys, people waving, children playing. But the beach was silent. No figures stood on the shore. No sound came from the trees. As he and his men stepped on land, dread filled their chests. The settlement was abandoned. The houses were empty, weathered by time and storms. Fences were broken, tools scattered, but there were no signs of violence. No bones, no blood, no graves. The colonists had not been attacked. They had simply vanished. Then they found the only clue. Carved into a wooden post at the edge of the fort was a single word, Croatoan. He recognized it immediately. Croatoan was the name of a nearby island, home to a friendly native tribe. Before leaving years earlier, he had told the colonists that if they ever had to move, they should carve a message showing where they went, and if they were in danger, they should add a cross. There was no cross, only that one word, Croatoan. White wanted to sail there immediately. He believed his family was alive, waiting for him. But fate betrayed him once more. A sudden storm swept in from the Atlantic, fierce and relentless. His crew, terrified of shipwreck, refused to continue. They turned the ship toward England. John White begged, pleaded, but it was useless. He was forced to leave. He never saw his family again. The lost colony was gone. For centuries, historians, explorers, and scientists have searched for answers. What happened to the 115 men, women, and children of Roanoke? There were no bodies, no ruins, no proof of what became of them. Some believe they were killed by hostile tribes. Others think they tried to sail home and were lost at sea. Some suspect starvation, disease, or internal conflict. But the most intriguing theory of all suggests that they survived by blending with the native tribes around them. Reports from later English settlers in Jamestown told strange tales. Some claimed to have seen white Indians with light hair and gray eyes. Others spoke of English-style clothing and metal tools being used deep within native villages. A few said they heard stories from local elders about a group of pale-skinned people who had come long ago, starving and desperate, and who had been welcomed in. Could this have been the people of Roanoke? Over the years, explorers discovered fragments, a European ring, a broken sword hilt, a copper token, scattered across the Carolina coast. None of it proved anything conclusively, but together they whispered the same story. Maybe the colonists had not died. Maybe they had become part of something new. As centuries passed, the mystery only deepened. Every generation rediscovered the question, what really happened to Roanoke? Archaeologists have dug through layers of soil. Scientists have run DNA studies. Satellites have scanned the islands. Yet the answer remains elusive. The colony disappeared without a trace, leaving behind the single most haunting clue in American history, a word carved into wood. Croatoan. Even today, the name stirs unease. It appears in books, legends, and even ghost stories. Some believe it to be cursed, a mark of disappearance. Over time, Croatoan became a symbol of things lost to history, ships, people, places that vanished without explanation. It stands as a reminder of how fragile human hope can be, how easily time can erase even our greatest efforts. But perhaps the truth isn't about vanishing at all. Maybe the settlers didn't disappear. Maybe they changed. Maybe they survived and merged with the land and its people. Maybe their descendants walked the same ground generations later, unaware that the blood of both England and America flowed within them. In that way, the colony wasn't lost. It evolved. John White died in England years later, never knowing the fate of his daughter and granddaughter. The dream he carried across the ocean ended in silence, but it also planted a seed, the dream of America. Within 2 decades, new colonies would rise, Jamestown, Plymouth, others that would succeed where Roanoke failed. Yet none of them would ever capture the haunting mystery of that first fragile settlement on the edge of the world. Today, Roanoke Island is quiet. Tourists walk among the trees where those settlers once lived. They gaze at the reconstructed fort, at the carvings, at the calm waters beyond. If you stand there long enough, you might feel the weight of centuries pressing down, the ghosts of the first Americans of English descent whispering through the pines. The lost colony of Roanoke remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in history. Not a story of tragedy alone, but of resilience, courage, and the eternal human desire to begin again, even in the face of the unknown. The word carved into that wooden post has outlived every person who ever saw it. Croatoan, a single word that carries 4 centuries of questions, wonder, and silence. And as the sun sets over the Outer Banks, the ocean glows golden and red, the same sky those settlers once saw, the same waves that carried them across the Atlantic, the same winds that took them away. Their story, like America itself, is a blend of loss and hope, mystery and endurance. Perhaps the truth will one day be found beneath the sand, or within the bloodline of a living descendant, or perhaps it is meant to remain a mystery, a story that belongs to history and to the imagination. Either way, the lost colony lives on, not in ruins, not in bones, but in legend. And as the sun sets over the Outer Banks, the ocean glows golden and red, the same sky those settlers once saw, the same waves that carried them across the Atlantic, the same winds that took them away. Their story, like America itself,
is a blend of loss and hope, mystery and endurance. Perhaps the truth will one day be found beneath the sand or within the bloodline of a living descendant, or perhaps it is meant to remain a mystery, a story that belongs to history and to the imagination. Either way, the lost colony lives on, not in ruins, not in bones, but in legend. And as the sun sets over the outer banks, the ocean glows golden and red, the same sky those settlers once saw, the same waves that carried them across the Atlantic, the same winds that took them away. Their story, like America itself, is a blend of loss and hope, mystery and endurance. Perhaps the truth will one day be found beneath the sand or within
the bloodline of a living descendant. Or perhaps it is meant to remain a mystery, a story that belongs to history and to the imagination. Either way, the lost colony lives on, not in ruins, not in bones, but in legend. And somewhere, perhaps, the spirit of Virginia Dare still walks the quiet shores of Roanoke, the child of two worlds, lost to time, but never forgotten.